الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, we continue reading through and studying and reflecting on the book of Allama Naraqi, Jami al-Sa'adat, which is a book in Islamic ethics. It's one of our very good, I would say, gems in the school of Ahlul Bayt in Islamic ethics. I do want to clarify something actually. Today I was reading the translation, and I mentioned to Mu'minin that the translation is not the full translation, it's just a bit of a summary. However, reading through some of the translation or some of the concepts and their translations, I found a little bit of error in there. So I just want to clarify that it's summarized and it's not the best in terms of a translation. So we started studying this book assuming that there is a translation. However, it is not the best and it is not the complete book. However, I am going through the Arabic book, and I will clarify. And if you have questions based on your readings, if anything sounds odd, please feel free to ask so that we can clarify and see if it is an issue with the translation, which is often the case with many things, including a hadith. People send me hadith translations, and in the English translation, it is problematic. The concept is, it does not make sense, or it's actually misleading. So often I have to clarify that it is an issue with the translation. Sometimes we have masail, jurisprudential matters from our great scholars, the books of fiqh, and the translation of that sometimes also is misleading. And so it is unfortunate, but it is there. The example I want to give is, I was reading, we were in the section regarding the different types of vices with relation to virtues. So after introducing the main faculties of the soul, of the nafs, of the self, being, we said, the aqila, al-quwwa al-aqila, the intellect, al-quwwa al-ghadabiyya, that anger and rage, or that sense of overpowering, that kind of sense, or defending sometimes that power, that is translated to anger, ghadabiyya, but we have to understand what it is, not just the translation. And we said there is the shahawiyya, which is the faculty of desires, and also the wahmiyya, which is about imagination, or could be illusion, it could be assumptions. And so it's that the faculty or the ability of the nafs to think beyond and basically consider things beyond the things that it sees, and the things that it knows. So we're able to imagine things because we have this ability to think beyond what we see and what we feel and touch and so on. So that is also a faculty of the nafs. And each of those can be used positively or negatively. And so they say for each of them, there are the two extremes. Yes, so the balance is the virtue, and the two extremes going either extra or less than the balance is what is considered the vice. When it comes to the justice, the fourth category, he says the justice, the two extremes are oppression, al-dhulm or al-inzilam. The other concept he calls the acceptance of oppression for yourself. So in the English translation, it says submissiveness. And submissiveness is not necessarily that concept at all. Submissiveness could be a good thing. Okay, submissiveness could be positive, could be negative, because you could submit to God and it's positive. If you submit to an oppressor and there's no need for you to do that, that could be the inzilam, but that's not necessarily the correct translation. So al-inzilam is with regards to, so he says, we have, with regards to intellect, if you recall, we said, so we have the 4 balanced virtues and the 8 categories of vices. And from those you have, if you remember, we said the balance is 1. But when you go off balance, there are many levels. Okay, so when it comes to the vices, it's not just one, a little bit off. Could be way off. It could be a combination. Okay, so a combination of one faculty with the other faculty going off balance to lead to a certain vice. So when it comes to the main categories, so we have intellect. If we use our intellect wrongly, they refer to it as jurbuza, which is the basically wrong way of using one's intellect, and which often would lead to mistakes, misunderstandings. And so examples he gave: doubts, the compound ignorance. So one is thinking, but is thinking without the right way, the right methodology of using one's intellect. And so they would go into further error. And the other extreme of it is not to use your intellect, which is ignorance of the simple way of ignorance. So less usage of or non-usage of intellect. The other faculty, we said, with the bravery or the faculty of ghadab, the balance is bravery. Okay, if one uses their faculty of anger properly, the balanced form of it is to be brave. The off balance, either going extreme of all the usage of it in the wrong way, is when one becomes reckless. Okay, it's no longer considered bravery, it's recklessness. Or the other extreme would be coward, to be coward, to not use that faculty at all, or not make use of it. So something that one should stand against does not stand because they lack bravery, therefore they are coward. Or something that they should run from, they think that they have to stand against, and therefore they're reckless. So these are the 2 extremes with that regard. And then we have the 2 extremes with regards to the faculty of desire. So either one who goes after fulfillment of desires with no restrictions, no limitations, or one that suppresses their desires beyond what is even permissible or recommended. So this is the other extreme. So one is, they refer to one extreme as the sharah, Shara is like when one is, you know, extremely hungry or acting like a gluttony, where one just eats nonstop or goes after desires in that way. And the other one, they translated it as lethargy. I don't know if that's the right translation, but basically the other extreme of not, you know, to khumud. In Arabic, it's khumud. Khumud is, could be, the translation of it is, it could be lethargy, or could be being too quiet, excessively quiet, and or not going after one's needs and so on. However, again, it's important to understand the concept, not just terms, because terms could be used or exchanged for other terms, or could be mistakes in translations. And the last one we said, with regards to justice, either one goes towards oppressing others or allowing others to oppress him. Either of those is off balance. Then we had a section of elaboration on each of those, and he stated many vices and their opposites for intellect, for the anger, for the desire. For all of those, he stated many. And when it comes to the the Wahmiya, or specifically when he calls it justice as the balance for the fourth faculty, he says this is actually the balance. There's the off balance is any of the other going wrong in any of the other faculties is also applicable with the going off balance with regards to justice. So justice is the balance for all of them. Okay, al-adl is the balance for all of the faculties, and going off that is basically is off. And dhulm, he says both extremes are the same, in the sense that it's not, we cannot say that if I accept oppression for myself, it's less than oppressing others. We cannot make that statement. Why? First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you your own, basically the authority of your own affairs within a limit. And He has not allowed oppression. So allowing oppression against yourself is just like oppressing others. It's not, we cannot say, okay, I can allow it against myself, it's okay. No, that is not justice. That is also the same as the other extreme. So either way, all of these, more or less of any of this balance is injustice. When it comes, we stated many of the ones with regards to intellect last session. If you remember, we said, for example, with the intellectual one, we have one who uses their, with that proper methodology of using intellect and reasoning, they think, but they make assumptions, and therefore they reach compound ignorance. Another one he says they reach a state of hira, confusion, doubt. Okay, the state of doubt. Yes, it is okay to doubt in order to reach certainty. However, when it comes to awliya Allah, when their intellect is pure, they don't have that doubt anymore. So we should strive to purify our minds to a level that we don't have doubts. And we should ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to clear our minds from any level of doubts, or the shak and shubha. In Arabic, we have shak and shubha. What is the difference? Shak is doubt in general, okay? Uncertainty and doubt. Shubha is when we think something is true, looks like, and that's why it comes from the term shabaha, which is to look alike. You know, in I think you call the shrines that are made like the shrine of the Prophet, you call them shabi. Is that what it's called in Urdu? When you make the little shrines, is that called shabi? Yeah. So it comes from that term. Yeah. So basically, the shubha is because it looks like truth, it looks like knowledge or truth, but it's not. So that is referred to as shubha.
In English, the only word they use is doubt.
Doubt. So that's why I have to bring both of them, because it's lacking. There is a lacking. When it comes to English, definitely there's a lacking. And with many terms, you know, in terms of even sabr, for example. Can we translate sabr into just patience? Or kufr into, for instance, say kufr means to disbelieve, for example, not necessarily. So kufr is could be to deny, to reject, to not not acknowledge, okay, not acknowledge the truth knowingly, and so it's more than the one term. Yeah, back to this, the intellect, the level of intellect. There are multiple things that could go wrong in either way, of overusing or using intellect in a negative way, or not using it without the proper methodology, thinking it's basically لا تقدموا بين يدي الله ورسوله. You know, in Surah Al-Hujurat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not present your idea, your thoughts as in being true against the idea and thought of God and His Messenger. Yeah. So when somebody starts, you know, basically we call it in Arabic, we say falsafa. Okay. He starts suggesting things, analyzing things in a way that is contradictory to Quran and the words of Ahlul Bayt. This is where we consider it the wrong path of using the same intellect, but using it in the wrong way. And the opposite of all of those, when it comes to intellect, in terms of doubt, shubuhat, you know, the uncertainty, or the look alike to the truth, the shubha, any of those things, shak and shubha, the opposite of them is certainty, yaqeen. We said there are many other types, including, if you recall, we mentioned that even shirk is one of the vices of the faculty of intellect, okay? Because a proper, pure intellect, aql, sees God and the oneness of God. So shirk is a disease, a vice of the faculty of intellect. And the opposite of it is tawheed, obviously. Wasawis, all sorts of the not just doubts. Waswas is the whispering here of the shaitan, but you know, the doubtful thinking and the allowing of the whispering of shaitan are allowed as a part of, these are the effects of shirk, or effect of shak. If one has shirk, you know, not seeing the one system, one God, one system, one truth, Therefore, they go down the path of shirk. Therefore, they go down the path of doubt, and that allows shaitan. You know, that's why we tell people when it comes to jurisprudential matters, when they have doubts, when they doubt frequently, kathiru shak, what should they do? Ignore it, because that opens the gate of shaitan, or to shaitan. Shaitan has a path onto the mind of this individual, and therefore this individual is not capable of understanding and using their intellect properly. It's overtaken or overshadowed by shaitan through their doubts. We said when it comes to the faculty of intellect, even using intellect in order to come up with plots and plans to reach something that one desires. Okay, that's wrong use of intellect. So God gave you the intellect. Okay, some people are very smart in terms of IQ. Yeah, but what do they use it for? They use it to reach their own whims and desires. What happened? They're misusing their intellect. Second faculty that we spoke of, it's vices, the faculty of ghadab. We said things like recklessness, cowardness, fear, but we said sometimes some of these vices, and this is something that we will inshallah come back to, some of these vices could be exempt from being a vice if it's used for a good reason. So khawf in itself is not a good thing, to be fearful. Okay? In fact, that is stemming from a state of mind of not trusting God. So it's considered a vice, khawf. To have this always fearful that something's going to happen. Okay? That's not a good thing. Not psychologically, not spiritually, or neither psychologically nor spiritually is it a good thing. But what if one has fear of being in a state of sin? Is that a bad thing? It's no longer a bad thing. What if one has fear of disobedience, okay, or fear to fail against shaitan, for example? Okay, so for instance, the khalwa, to be alone with another person of the opposite gender, is problematic if one fears that they could fall into sin. And having that fear in order to avoid falling into sin is not a negative thing anymore. So some of these we have to understand that when it comes to fear for their own personal thing, for worldly things, for worldly gains, or worldly losses, fear in that regard is problematic. Fear for spirituality, for godly causes, and things like that is not a problem. Yes.
When we talk about not to accept oppression for oneself, right? Mm-hmm. If someone, for example, speaks badly to you, mm-hmm, you don't need to fight back. But isn't that some kind of like, if someone, shouldn't you also stand up for yourself because
you should not accept oppression or something? Yeah. So there's this is, I think we went over this once from a different angle, and it's very similar what we're facing, what we're going through, or this issue is very similar. I think the question that came before was similar to this, in the sense that we are told that we should stand up for ourselves and so on. At the same time, we're told forgiving is a virtue and we should forgive and forget and so on. So how do we balance those things? When it comes to forgiveness, not because one is powerless, not because one feels like I'm weak, I cannot do anything about it. Okay, not because I'm coward. Okay, no, because I am trying to be the better person, the bigger, better person, and for the sake of God, forgive the other person. You might say, okay, what if one is not in a stronger position? Okay, what a believer is always in a stronger position, because a believer knows that if I stand, God is with me. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he stood against the army of his enemy, he was outnumbered, yes? Multiple times, yes? Maybe thousands of times. You know, if we compare 100 to almost 100,000, that's thousands of multiples, yeah? So all these multiples are there. Did he feel weak? Never. Okay. Why? Because he knew he's with God. In fact, he told his family that you will be victorious. He told Zainab salamullah alayhi, you will be winning. This battle is ours. We're winning it. And Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam declared that. When somebody tried to mock him, he said, who was the winner? Ibn Rasulullah. He said, well, wait for the adhan. If you hear the name of God and the name of the messenger of God, our grandfather, the messenger of God, then we won. And if not, then they won. Because their goal was, their mission was to wipe it out. And therefore, their mission was had failed, and the mission of Imam Hussein alayhi salam was the one that was victorious or was achieved. So one who's with God is not weak, is not fearful, and is willing to stand when they need to stand, and forgives out of power. That's why it's a virtue, al-'afw 'inda al-maqdara. The virtue is when you know that you have the ability. So it's when it's not about accepting oppression, okay? It's sometimes, let's say, you know, it's in a financial transaction, okay? I feel like, okay, there must be a misunderstanding, a mistake, okay? So I say, okay, you know what? I'll forgive my share. Okay? I'm not accepting oppression, not on myself, not on the other. If I have to teach a lesson to the other party, I'll make that statement. Okay, I'm not forgiving because it's your right. Okay, but if I have to make that statement for education purposes, for guidance purposes, not for arrogance purposes. Okay, because sometimes saying it is out of arrogance. But sometimes, no, I have to clarify. The right is this. Al-haq is this. But I'm giving my right away for the sake of God. Okay? This is different to accepting oppression in that sense. Okay? So sometimes one decides to forgive, to give, to be the bigger, better person. That's all one thing. And accepting oppression and feeling weak in that. And so this is why it's with regards to what? With regards to shaja'. Remember? We said, you know, you have brave. One extreme is one rages and harms others. Another extreme is one feels weak and accepts even oppression. Okay? So no, one has all the shaja'. It's not a matter of feeling weak and not being able to stand up against injustice and things like that. No, it's a matter of deciding that this is what is better. Okay, for the better good, for the society, for the family, for the sake of the family, for the sake of unity in this family. Okay, now sometimes when you realize that somebody, if you allow them, they're going to oppress you and oppress others. Okay, so no, you stand up and you make a statement. Sometimes you have to educate them if they're mistaken. This is not your right.
Because if you accept oppression, others might view that as okay.
As okay, exactly. I'll give you an example. In some cultures, I was facing a case of this nature, and perhaps I have a responsibility of further working on this. They think that female do not inherit certain aspects of inheritance, including real estate. Okay, their daughters will not inherit, and this is oppression. Okay, now for both the person who is accepting that and others who are seeing that, they have a responsibility to correct that, because this is an oppressive culture and it should change. Okay, so one has to say something about it, make a statement, do something about it. Okay, correct it and then forgive. That's fine. Okay, for example, a daughter realizes that they're taking my rights. Okay, and if I accept it, I'm basically accepting this rule, accepting this oppressive culture, and basically giving it a seal of approval. Okay, so she says, no, I'm not accepting this. This is my right. This is what I'm expecting, and fights for it. In the end, when she gets it, she says, you know what? I want to distribute this between my siblings. I don't need it. Or you know what? This is actually a charity on behalf of my parents. Okay. I'm not fighting because I want, I want something worldly, but I'm fighting because I don't want oppression. I don't want to accept oppression. Okay. So this is, but there's a misunderstanding. It's not a matter of approving or sealing approval on, putting a seal of approval on a wrong culture. It's just a misunderstanding in the family, and one feels, okay, there's something that belongs to me or should come to me, and it's not coming to me, and if I make a fuss about it, it's going to create a problem. You know what? I'm going to forgive. Okay, that is different. So I hope that kind of clarifies where.
There was another question that was
Posted, okay.
Was in the rights of the ruler in the Salatul Hukuk. It was saying, and I've not checked, but this is what was mentioned.
Okay.
You should be sincere to him. You should not revolt against him because his hands are strongly upon you. And in quotes, by revolting, you would cause of your own destruction as well as his destruction, and beseech him with humbleness and courtesy his pleasure as far as is useful in averting harm from you and does not interfere with your religion. So when you read something like this,
Yeah.
they are concerned that, doesn't this leave much room for standing up against oppression for yourself?
Okay, so it's very clear that, just to quickly rephrase it, so in Risalat al-Huquq, the Imam salawatullah wa salamu alayhi states the rights of the authorities, leaders, as in the political leaders, if you wish, in today's world. Someone who's a governor, a king, I don't know, a minister, whatever, a prime minister or something. Authorities, those who have the rulership upon the people. How do we deal with them? On the one hand, we should not accept oppression and so on. That's understandable. On the other hand, if I know that by me standing against a certain system or making certain statements, I'm putting myself in harm, in danger. Okay? And this is where the balance is very important. If I foolishly decide to put myself in harm with no benefit, no gain, okay, no big statement that's being made. Sometimes there are certain circumstances that necessitate standing, making a statement. But in general, okay, let's say you're in a certain country and they say to you, you're not allowed to pray in public. Okay, so then you stand up and pray in public. And as a result, you get lashed. So you have caused yourself harm, and you caused the person who is lashing you harm. Because he has a rule, okay? He has set a rule, and now the police officer, the judge, whoever it is who is in that court has to apply the rule, and you broke that rule. Okay? Now and this is something you can avoid. You just go and pray at home, for example. On the other hand, there is a law that is oppressive. Okay? Don't feed the hungry, for example. And you see that they're going to die. And you realize, no, this requires standing up. Okay, there is a siege on a certain population and they're killing them. Okay? We need to do something about it. We need to do something about it. Again, within the boundary of what we can, how we can be effective and least harm that we would bring upon ourselves and so on. And when we expose ourselves to harm, we are harming both parties. Okay, when we are standing up and exposing ourselves to harm. So these are very difficult situations. That is why the Imams of Ahlul Bayt often told their followers, in the absence of the Imam, go to the representatives, because these are very, very tricky situations to assess. Where do we say no? Where do we not say no? Where is it considered bravery and standing against injustice and oppression? And where is it considered recklessness and foolishness and exposing yourself to harm and others? So for example, when it comes to taqiyya, okay, taqiyya is in the Quran, taqiyya in the ahadith. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt, they say this is our way and the way of our fathers. Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, he says, "At-taqiyatu dini wa dinu abai." This is our religion. This is the religion of our fathers. Okay, in the sense that you're living in a society. If you expose yourself to harm, you're harming not just yourself, your family, your community, everybody around you, unnecessarily. And there's no real gain in that equation. On the other hand, at times, with the verdict of either the Imam or the representatives, indirect representatives of the Imam, the Maraja, they say, no, you got to stand here. They tell us, okay, now you got to stand. Sometimes the individual can make that assessment himself or herself if they have the knowledge, the understanding, the wisdom, and so on. But oftentimes it is tricky, it is very tricky to the point that it necessitates a verdict from the Maraja, the religious authorities. I hope that covers that question. So then we come to the faculty of the ghadab, and we said that one is the balance is bravery, the other ones are the off balance, whether cowardness or recklessness. And typically people who go off balance, they are doing it for worldly gains. Okay, so if somebody, for example, for a desire that they want to get, for a position they want to get, they act, they use their anger and rage and fight, that's not considered bravery, is it? Whereas if they do it for a godly cause and for this, for a establishment of justice, goodness, and so on, it is bravery. And in that case, if they don't do something, say something, stand up, it is weakness. And so they say part of that is sighar al-nafs. Some people feel like they are insignificant and not capable. And that is also stems from lack of faith, we said. One who has faith would believe that God is with them, therefore they don't feel weak. The other one is to have a state of not um, not kibar al-nafs as in no. One feels little and insignificant. Another feels proud and arrogant that I am it. The balance is what? I'm not insignificant. Why? Because God is with me. I don't know if any of you recall our conversation on affirmations. I have, they speak today about positive thinking and, self-building, and part of it, they say you have to have those affirmations. And, they suggest that you should remind yourself of the fact that you're good, you're important, so they have these words: I am important, I am beautiful, I'm smart, I am. And I tell people these are all wrong. I'm sorry. Okay. The correct way of affirmations is God has made me beautiful. God has favored me. وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. God has honored me. God has given me power. As long as I'm with God, I am strong because God is with me. That kind of affirmation makes us feel positive, but at the same time, not go in the wrong direction and feel arrogant and so on. The problem in today's society, however, is that they want to solve everything, and they want to solve all these psychological and social issues, without acknowledgement of God. And the equation is never, ever complete. If we don't have God in the equation, it's never complete. We cannot get the balance right. We said part of that ghadabiyya is to have aspirations and to aspire for big things, aiming high, ulu al-himma, aiming high. This is actually part of the ghadabiyya faculty, the anger faculty, positive way. The negative part of it is to think like I'm not capable, I cannot. Again, we said the other one is like I'm weak, I'm insignificant. That is not necessarily the right attitude. Not having protection, ghira, we said ghira is what? Ghira is not jealousy. Ghira is a protective sense, especially towards one's family or towards one's faith. Okay, having a protective sense. If somebody, for instance, feels that their family is being attacked, okay, their woman, for example, having that protective sense, that's ghira. Okay, even a woman who feels like her husband is under attack, scrutiny, or something, she wants to defend him. Okay, that is protectiveness, and that is a beautiful thing. Not having that, adam al-ghira, is a vice, is weakness in the faculty of ghadab. So one needs that ghadab for that sense of protectiveness. It's a positive thing when it's used in that way. Another one is another vice which is related to this faculty also is ajala, hastiness. Okay, to rush. That is also a vice in this faculty. When one gets angry for something, what happens? Typically, heartbeat becomes faster. So you want to react quickly. Yes. So there is a difference between ajala, hastiness, and being timely. Okay. Sometimes something's happening, you have to react. Okay. Somebody throws something at my face. Okay. If I don't react quickly, I could get harmed. So that's not ajala. You have to understand. Sometimes in the place, something's happening, you have to do something. That's not ajala. Ajala is when you could take a moment to think and assess what is the best reaction, and you don't take that, that is hastiness and ajala, which is also in the a vice of the faculty of anger.
We see al-ajal for the talked about.
Ahsant, yeah. So, ajal, ahsant, that's a good. So why do we ask God to bring sooner, you know? So this is a good, actually very good reflection, because typically they translate عجل لوليك الفرج or عجل الله فرجه. What do they translate it as? Any help here? Hasten. Is hastening a good thing or negative or positive?
It can be both.
It can be both. Personally, I prefer not to use this term because it could have negative connotation. I cannot ask God to be hasty, okay, and say God hasten his reappearance, okay. So I don't think ajal is the correct translation. So ajal at-ta'jil, again a broader term. This is lacking in translation and lacking in the language. Arabic is very flexible, okay. So ajala could be considered a negative thing, hastening or hastiness and so on. But ajala as opposed to ta'jil is a different concept. Ta'jil is postponing, ta'jil is not postponing. Okay, so we're asking God to not postpone, to bring sooner. So my translation of ajil ala dhuhurih is bring sooner, or ajjal Allahu farajah, bring sooner his relief.
But we also use ajala when we refer to also death, right?
Yes, Ahsant. Yes, so that is exactly, yeah, so you actually nailed it. So with regards to debts, we should rush in paying them off and not to postpone, delay, okay? Ta'jil is when we delay it, okay? And ta'jil is when we do it on time, sooner, okay? Do it as soon as we can, okay? As soon as it's right. Okay, so why are we asking Ajal Allahu Faraja? Why are we saying it? This is important. Does God not know when is the best time?
He knows.
He knows. So why am I saying it? I'm saying it because I'm acknowledging that I want his return. Okay, because some people, they don't want his return. Yeah, why? They don't want justice. إنهم يرونه بعيدا. Yes, they see it far, they don't want it. They pray that it doesn't happen. They tried to stop it. Ben al-Abbas were trying to stop it from, even stop him from being born. Just like Musa alayhi salam, they did not want him to be born. Yeah, Fir'aun was preventing the birth of Musa alayhi salam. And Ben al-Abbas, Mutawakkil onwards, they were trying to prevent the birth of Imam al-Hujjah Ajalullah Ta'ala Farajah. So they want him not to happen far, and we want him to happen, and we pray that it's sooner. Okay, so it's from our perspective, not that we're expecting God to do something that is different to what he knows that is best, or different to his what he has destined. The next, so there are quite a few. Again, in this section, he is stating the vices and their opposites. Then eventually, it'll come time where he tackles each one of those and how do we treat it. So first is to acknowledge. Okay, so we have to understand what is the vice and what is the virtue. So we try to acquire virtues, understand ourselves. Where do we stand? Which one of those qualities do I possess? Do I have the vices? Do I have the virtues? Which ones, or where am I in this area? So one of them, he says, for instance, سوء الظن بالله تعالى وبالمؤمنين, to have doubts and think wrongly of God and the believers, that they're after me, they want to harm me, they want to do something to me. Okay, that is a result of the faculty of what? Ghadab. Okay, because one is in that state of defensiveness and they start doubting even God and believers. Everyone is out there wanting to harm. And that is also a result of cowardness and weakness of the self. Okay, one who's weak, feels weak within themselves and is coward, would have this kind of doubt against God and the believers. And also wrong thinking also. Obviously, anger in itself, ghadab. Now we're speaking of the faculty of ghadab, yes? In the faculty of ghadab, the balance is what? Shaja'a. Remember, the balance in this faculty is bravery, okay? Bravery in the faculty of ghadab. In this faculty, ghadab itself is a vice. Anger is a vice, okay? Anger is a vice. It's one of those, however, that is, as long as it is not for godly and good reasons, it's considered a vice in itself. Okay? So now, ghadab not as the faculty, ghadab as a characteristic. When we're speaking of ghadab here, as a characteristic, it's also a vice, unless, similar to, we said, khawf, fear. Fear, if it's from sinfulness and from shaitan, to be a prey to shaitan and so on, fear is not a vice. But fear for worldly things, losses and so on, to live in that state of fear is not a virtue, it's a vice. So we said, remember with the believers, لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. So both khawf and huzn are also vices. Okay, khawf for worldly things, huzn for worldly things. Quran says with regards to worldly things, لكي لا تأسوا على ما فاتكم ولا تفرحوا بما آتاكم. Don't ever have grief over what you missed out on. Okay, it didn't happen. It wasn't meant to happen. Okay, believer, alhamdulillah. Yeah, but one who's, oh my God, I missed out on this deal. Could have made $1 million. So, wasn't meant for me. So, often people, we sold this property and a few years later it was worth 10 times. Okay, it wasn't your sustenance. Also, no matter what you would have done. That's so. Never ever have that kind of grief and sadness. Oh, I wish this. No. When it comes to worldly things. When it comes to good things, godly things, yes. I wish I did more good deeds. I wish I listened more to my parents. I wish I was more dutiful to my community. I wish all the positive things, yes. And I wish I can change and become better and so on. That is okay. But when it comes to worldly things, no. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. So again, ghadab, lillah, and so on, no problem. But for worldly things, anger is a vice. And it's a state, he says, it's a state of the movement of the self within, in a way that that one is in a state of rage, and it comes from within, and it leads one to some sort of extremism. Okay, extreme acts. Okay, rage and anger, they lead to extreme acts. And therefore, if they are not for godly reasons or good things, then they are definitely a vice, and it's one of the very, very damaging, harmful ones. ضده, he says the opposite of which is hilm, forbearance, and thinking before acting, using one's intellect and being patient and making sure we do the godly thing, react in a godly manner. One of them is intiqam. Intiqam is to revenge. Okay, revenge is it a good thing? If it is for godly reasons, that is an exception. Otherwise, revenge in itself for your own reasons, for your own causes, is a vice. And it's a result of anger, ghadab. And the opposite of revenge is what? Pardoning, okay? Forgiving, pardoning, al-afu. Also, being vicious, okay, and being harsh in one's dealing with others. Also, it's a result of ghadab, anger. And the opposite of it is to be lenient and soft, al-rifq. Many bad ethical or bad behaviors, su'ul khuluq, bad behavior, a lot of it stems from ghadab. Su'ul khuluq is a result of ghadab. A lot of it, okay? One is angry, says rude things, acts rudely, does not smile, frowns, yeah, does not show love, affection to even loved ones, okay? A lot of that is a result of ghadab. If we could contain it. وَالْكَاظِمِينَ الْغَيْظِ. Quran says those who contain their rage. And the opposite of that is husnul khuluq, to be beautiful in one's behavior, in one's mannerism. One of them is hiqd. Hiqd, basically holding grudges. Okay? Hiqd is to have grudges, hating and holding grudges. Also, it's a vice, obviously. Wanting evil things for others and wanting the removal of good things for them. These are all the results of anger or ghadab. If ever one feels like for a fellow believer, a human being, an average person, okay, oftentimes we start justifying our ghadab and therefore our hiqd, anger, and therefore our grudges, and therefore our revenge or wanting the removal of good things from people. We justify it by saying, oh, they did this, they oppressed here, they did this, they did that. We should not, in fact, that is literally the definition of ghadab. Because I feel I was wronged, therefore I am angry, and I'm allowing this anger to control me, control my emotions towards people, and control my actions towards people. The opposite of that is what? He says, an-nasiha, to try and advise people or to pray for them and their well-being. They made a mistake, may God forgive them and may God guide them. They have something that is good that I wish I could have as well. May God give them pleasure with it and grant them the guidance to use it positively in the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so on. Wanting good things for people, iradat al-khair wa salah, and praying for their well-being and also advising them. Animosity is also a result of this faculty of ghadab, having, considering people enemies and holding this animosity towards them. is also the vice, and it's a result of this faculty of ghadab. Again, if it's not personal, if it's an enemy for the sake of God, it's not a personal matter. Okay? Ahlul Bayt never ever had personal things with any of their enemies. They, even when people wanted to harm them and stood against them, the Prophet and Ahlul Bayt prayed for their guidance. Okay, so they stood and fought against them when they had to defend themselves, defend the believers, and so on. But it wasn't a personal grudge that they held against people and out of animosity. No, it was simply to establish goodness, establish justice. Otherwise, they prayed for the people, for their guidance, and they would be feeling so bad for them. Not just prayed for them, felt so bad for them. Quran says to the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran says to the Holy Prophet, فَلَا تَذْهَبْ نَفْسَكَ عَلَيْهِمْ حَسَرَاتٍ. We only read this ayah and understand what it's saying. Ya Rasulullah, don't allow yourself to die, I'm paraphrasing here, to die a slow death because of them. تذهب نفسك عليهم حسرات, like you're perishing yourself stage by stage because of regret of where they are and where they are and what they're doing to themselves. That's how caring he was. عزيز عليه ما عنتم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says he's so kind, so loving. It is so heavy for him. It is so difficult for him when you're struggling. Struggling in what sense? When people are disobeying God and doing wrong things, they are struggling. They are oppressing themselves. We say when we do dua kumail, when we recite dua kumail, when we are acknowledging that we wronged ourselves, what do we say? ظلمت نفسي. Yeah, I did dhulm to myself. I oppressed myself. If I disobey God, I'm oppressing myself. So the Prophet, when he sees them doing that to themselves, how does he feel? Azizun alayhi ma anittum. He feels so much pain. It hurts him that people are hurting themselves or oppressing themselves. So again, when it comes to animosity, it is a vice unless we are standing against injustice for the sake of God without personal grudges. Let's be very clear on that. In that faculty also, we have things like the ujb, to feel so good about oneself. Okay? And the difference between ujb and kibr is what? Kibr is when one compares himself to others and he feels he is better than others. Arrogance. Ujb is to feel good about oneself. So we said with affirmations, it's okay to say, God has made me beautiful. Okay? Or it's okay to say, God has given me so much intellect and so my IQ is so good, I'm so smart. Okay? It's okay to acknowledge that we've been gifted and honored, okay, and blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But is it okay to feel I'm so good? Okay? Not acknowledging that it's a blessing. وَمَا بِنَا مِن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever we have, it's from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's acknowledge that. Otherwise, it would be ujb. And the other one is the al-kibr, to have arrogance, and meaning feeling like I'm better than others. To feel like, yeah.
How about somebody to be pleased with what good is done?
That's similar to ujb. Yeah, so basically to have a sense of satisfaction that I did so good. Okay, versus I've been blessed by God and guided enough to do something good. Okay, so again, if I see it from me, it's ujb. If I see it from God, it's not. Okay, to acknowledge that okay, God blessed me and I was able to do something good. Okay, I was able to, somebody built a masjid, for example, for the sake of God, and recognizes that he has been blessed by God to be guided, to be given the finances because it's all from God, to be given the opportunity because it's all from God, and to be guided to do it. Okay, somebody sponsors, for example, a student to go to Hawza and study, okay, and to become a scholar and spread the religion. In my opinion, this is even better than building a masjid, because one is making a doctor, okay, to have services. The other one is just making the building. You cannot have a building without the doctors. In any case, both are important, but we have to make sure we don't neglect our, duties in either end. So somebody does that, and thanks God that he was able to do it, was given the finances to do it, because it's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَأَنفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقْنَاكُمْ مِنْ قَبْلِ أَنْ يَأْتِيَ يَوْمٌ, before the day that comes that you cannot do any transactions. لَا بَيْعٌ فِيهِ وَلَا خِلَالٌ. There's no transactions and no connections. Nobody's going to come and do anything that help you out. Okay, he's my cousin, let him go. No, on that day, intercession happens only with the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man dha alladhi yashfa'u 'indahu illa bi'idhnih, and it has its conditions. And so this is the it's important to keep in mind that we have intercession and we have rejection of intercession without his permission. So لا بيع فيه ولا خلال is rejection of intercessors that are not permitted by God and without the conditions that God has set. So acknowledging that we're able to give because God gave me. Okay, the wealth that God gave me, I was able to give. I was guided by God to give. Thank God. Okay, alhamdulillah. All praise. If anything is praiseworthy, the praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Can I praise myself? Self-praise? What do they say? No recommendation. Is that what the saying goes? How the saying goes? Self-praise, no recommendation. So it's not good to self-praise. Who do we praise? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I gave charity, alhamdulillah. Meaning what? Not alhamdulillah. No. Alhamdulillah. Praise, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He guided me, He gave me the finances, He gave me the ability, He enabled me to see the poor who needs so I can give the charity. He made that possible. The concept of charity is possible because there are poor people. Why did God allow for some people to be poor? He allowed for them to be patient and allowed for us to be charitable. For those who can, they can be charitable, and for those who are in that position of poverty, so they can gain the rewards of as-sabirin. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give the good news to sabirin. So all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If I feel I need to praise myself, then there's ujb. And if I feel I'm better than others, that's kibr. Iftikhar, on the other hand, it's another vice. Iftikhar is showing off that kibr and ujb. Okay? So ujb and kibr can be displayed. The display of it is showing off, or iftikhar. Iftikhar is for one to show it off. That's also a vice. I am this and that, and I have done this, and I come from this family, we built this, we have done this, and all sorts of things. Keep it between you and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If you've been blessed, thank God, and don't lose what you have done. Another vice is al-baghi. Al-baghi is to harm, basically to allow oneself to harm others. Okay, one is to feel better, one is to allow oneself to oppress or harm others. That's also one of the vices. Another one is, if you recall, we said tazkiyatun nafs. There are two meanings of tazkiyah. Tazkiyatun nafs is purification. Okay, قد أفلح من زكاها. Or tazkiyatun nafs is to consider oneself to be pure. If I consider myself to be pure, is a vice. Okay. فلا تزكوا أنفسكم هو أعلم بمن اتقى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not say or think that you are pure. God knows what's in the hearts, who is really guarding, who is really pure. Another one is al-asabiyya. Al-asabiyya is a state of feeling that my tribe is better, my family is better, therefore blind defense of my tribe, the people or the things I feel a sense of belonging to. It could be a soccer team. You know, my son was telling me the other day, I don't know where he is now, that there were kids at school told him, which soccer team do you support? What do they say, go for? What do you go for or something? And then when he was told, they knew it's not the team that they support, they told him, we can't talk to you. So he said, later on, I was saying salam to them and they wouldn't respond to me. That is definitely asabiyya, yeah? That is the kind of blind support and blind allegiance that is not Islamic and not godly, not ethical. It is a vice. It is to feel a sense of defense towards oneself or things that he belongs to. Okay, false defense, and basically thinking that I am good, and anyone who attacks me or is trying to tell me, not attacks me, trying to advise me, no, that's not correct, and I defend myself blindly. Me or anything that belongs to me, the family, the tribe, and so on. Then we come to the shahawiyya. I want to try and finish this section, inshallah. How much time do we have? So when it comes to the faculty of shahwa, or desire, we said there are the two extremes. The balance is iffa, okay, for one to only limit their desire to what is permitted and recommended. That is iffa, at-ta'affuf. And the extreme is either gluttony and overindulgence in desires. And the other extreme is to not even do what is needed and what is recommended or what is even permissible, completely abandoning those desires. And one is called khumud and the other one is shara. And he says, from them, these are some of the branches. One is, and again, we said these are some of. Why? Because we said the balance is the middle path. Yes, Siratul Mustaqim. Of it, there are so many ways. Okay, and then we have combinations. We have certain things that are related, certain vices that are related to one, certain that are related to two or three of those faculties. So it's like it branches off and it keeps going. So he says for the desire, one of the results of irregularities, either extremes, is loving this world, hubbud dunya. This is a result of allowing one to indulge in desires. Hubbul mal, loving money. If you recall, wanting money for good reasons is not loving money. I think we discussed this, or maybe in another session we had. There's a hadith that somebody came to I believe it was Imam Rida alayhi salam, but one of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, and asked, he claimed, he said, I love money. I love having money. Is it a problem? He said, the Imam asked him, clarify, what do you like it for? What do you want to have money for? So he stated a few things, then he said, no, this is okay, this is loving God. No, this is in fact godly. So what was it that he wanted money for? He says, first, I want to be debt-free. لأقضي به ديني. Okay, beautiful. What else? He says, وَوَسَّعُ بِهِ عَلَىٰ عِيَالِي. I want to make the life of my family convenient, comfortable, make their life easier. Okay, beautiful. What else? He says, then I want to spend for the sake of God. وَأُنْفِقُ بِهِ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ. Then the Imam says, no, this is godly. There's nothing wrong with that. So hubbul mal, as in like just wanting more and more. Those who just go for it, and it's just the numbers. ألهاكم التكاثر وتحبون المال حبا جما. Never enough. No number is ever enough, and it's just about accumulation. Okay, if you strive harder to get more people under your care and umbrella to care for them. Okay, more employment, for example, create more jobs, more employment, more opportunities, or even pray for more so that I can do more charitable things and more good things. And also along that, I want to make sure my family is living comfortably and they're debt-free and so on. It's all beautiful. But just the numbers, okay, hundreds of thousands or millions accumulating in their accounts, as in Farsi they say, for the day of Mabada, a day that never may happen. We pray for that day to never happen, and that day never happens, because that accumulation you never need. And when that day happens, none of that will help you. But in any case, this is how some people see it. So, hubbul mal is one of the vices. And the opposite of that is zuhd, asceticism or detachment from worldly things, worldly wealth, or the opposite of both of them. Hubbul dunya and hubbul mal is zuhd. One of those vices is to feel a sense of self-sufficiency. Al-ghina, okay, is a vice. Meaning what? To say, thank God he has made me comfortable, needless. I don't need to ask anybody. In fact, that's a beautiful dua to say, أغنني عما في أيدي الناس. Oh God, suffice me that I don't need to ask anybody. I don't need to beg people. Yeah. But to feel needless from God as well, that is definitely a vice. And so the opposite of that is to feel needy to God. أنتم الفقراء إلى الله. You are poor in the court of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of them is al-hirs. Al-hirs is to want more, to always want more. Okay, to have greed. It's typically translated to greed, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we can find a better term for hirs, but it's when one just wants more and more. Tama, very similar. Yeah, tama is very similar to basically to hirs. Basically, if somebody has something on their plate, okay, and it's enough for them to eat, but before they start eating, they want some more. They look at what's there and they want some more. Okay? We try and discipline our children to not have that, yes, but oftentimes we try and tell them what we already have not cleared or practiced or cleared our hearts of. So the translation it's giving me is keenness. I would not see that as the correct translation. So greed is typically used, but I don't know if it's the most accurate. Eagerness, excess, avid eagerness. Yeah, avid eagerness, maybe, yeah. So That's again one of the vices. At-tama is also mentioned here, which is also when one, wants things, always wants more, they avarice is what they translate it to, and avid eagerness, avarice, greed. But I don't see much more than greed that's commonly used, again, for the lack of better words. But yeah, hirs is when one, just wants more. And the opposite of it, it's good to know the opposite, it helps. The opposite of hirs is qana'a, to be satisfied with what we have. Okay, thank God I have this. This is qana'a. Hirs is when we're not satisfied. At-tama is similar to hirs, but with regards to what people have. Okay, so the difference between hirs and tama is hirs is to want more, not satisfied with what we already have, and tama is to look at, not be satisfied with what we have and want with what people have. Okay, similar to jealousy, but with regards to objects, specifically what people have. Okay, and the opposite of it is to feel, to not want what people have. Istighna, to feel sufficed of what people have in their hands. There's a hadith that if you want people to love you from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are 6 things he is asked in the hadith. One of them, he says, وَإِذَا أَرَدْتَ أَن يُحِبَّكَ النَّاسِ فَأَحْسِنْ إِلَيْهِمْ وَارْفُضْ مَا فِي أَيْدِيهِمْ. Do good to them and reject what's in their hands. In other words, do good to them without any tama, without any hope that you want to get something from them. Sometimes we do good because we want to get something. Okay, that's tama. But doing good without any expectations of any returns is a vice, of course. Yeah, hirs and tama are both vices. Bukhl is another vice with regards to also desires. Well, desires, because desires wants for themselves. Yeah, wants more for themselves, wants what others have, and also doesn't want to give what they have. Therefore, one becomes greedy or stingy. Again, very, very, أحسنت أنت الجواد وأنا البخيل. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the generous, Jawad, and we often are, by nature we are greedy, so we need to fight that. This is a vice, definitely. And another term for it in the Quran it's used is shuh. Shuh is actually when one lacks, doesn't have. Okay, but it's used for stinginess because one feels like I don't have. If I give, I'm going to be poor. So Quran says, وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. Whoever is protected from his own greed, from his own stinginess. This is beautiful. This ayah, وَمَن يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ. They are the victorious ones if they're protected from their own greed, stinginess. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from our bukhl or shuh. So these are all vices. Seeking what is not permissible, talabul haram. Seeking what is not permissible is also part of the faculty of desire. Okay, whether it be wealth, food, or even relationships, it's not permissible. Seeking it is part of the faculty and the result of the faculty of desire not being in the right balance of iffa. We said the balance of all of those things is what? Iffa, in this faculty. But for each of the vices also we have an opposite, which is a virtue. So for example, we said when it comes to bukhl, stinginess, the opposite of it is what? Generosity, giving, yes? So this is also the opposite of it. However, generosity falls under the balance in the area, in the faculty of desire. A good balance is ta'affuf, and that includes all of those virtues that are the opposites for the vices that result from either extreme. Al-ghadr wal-khiyana, also, to betray others. Okay, betrayal is also especially when it comes to trust. Somebody entrusts you with something and you betray their trust, God forbid. That is the result of this faculty, a vice in this faculty. And the opposite of it, he says, is al-amana, to be trustworthy, okay, to be ameen. All sorts of sinfulness with regards to food or relationships, all of it are considered the vices, different vices in this faculty. In this faculty also, there are some of the vices. Now, in this particular area, some of them are mixed with other, basically results of not just one faculty, but also other faculties. For example, arguments with the people, speaking about things that are not relevant, things that are not beneficial, okay, just for the sake of it, okay, desire to show off that I can speak, I can debate for the sake of winning the debate, okay. So these are also stemming from this faculty of desire. And then again, we said there are some of them that have to do with more than one faculty, things like jealousy, hasad. And jealousy comes from both desire, the faculty of desire, and the faculty of anger, and results into harming others and belittling others, ihtiqar, or even assaulting verbally or even physically. All of this is part of these vices that in this particular case, they stem from two areas, desire and anger together. Making somebody fearful, okay, bringing fear to the heart of people. This tricking, the concept of trick and treat. I say, why do we have to trick to get a treat? The concept of making one become fearful, that's actually a vice. It's un-Islamic, it's a vice, and in some cases it may result in situations where compensations also apply, or seeking forgiveness. You bring fear to the heart of a person, you have to ask them to forgive you unnecessarily. I don't know, some dress up like a ghost and go in front of somebody. This is all sinful. The opposite of it, they say, is to have light jokes. Okay, so the light joke is for the sake of bringing happiness, yes? You make a light joke to make someone happy. But why you trick them in a way that makes them fearful? Is that making them happy? No, it's making you happy, making some people laugh. But the person that is being tricked is actually being harmed, yes? So it's un-Islamic. Mudahana is another one of the vices. He mentions that mudahana is when one is willing to work with an oppressor, an evil person, and let's go of their duty of amr al-ma'ruf and nahy al-munkar for some worldly gains. Okay, so this is all obviously, these are all vices. Neglect of our duty to our brothers, even not connecting with them. Al-hijr. In the hadith, after 3 days, if you disconnect with a brother, After 3 days, salat is not accepted. Yes? So this connection with brothers is a vice. وَالتَّبَاعُ. Disconnecting with the family is worse. Hajr for the brothers, for the brothers in faith. But for the family, it's called what? Cutting. Hajr is to distance. Qata is to what? Cut. Yeah? So the difference between brothers in faith, community members and brothers in faith, is that when you don't connect with them, you're distancing, which is one type of sin or vice. With family, it's considered cutting. It's even worse, as in it's a worse vice and it's a worse sin. And qat' al-rahim shortens life and so on and so forth. It has severe consequences, both in this world and in the hereafter. The worst out of those is what? عقوق الوالدين. عقوق is basically when one, it's a very interesting term because it is unique in a sense. Okay, and uquq is to not be dutiful, undutiful, but it's very, very, very little to say undutiful. Okay, in the Arabic term is extremely bad. Okay, is worse than many sinful and many vices. Okay, qata al-rahim, for example, is one thing, but aqul walidain is the worst. One who cuts off with his family, cuts family ties, one who neglects his brothers is one thing, but aqul walidain is the worst, which is to not fulfill one's duty towards parents and basically neglect their rights, حقوق. To not fulfill the حقوق of walidain is حقوق. And it's one of the, in fact, great sins and worst vices. Continue next week, inshallah. Ahsantum. Wow, okay. Inshallah. Any questions or comments to hear?
This why the secular mentioned, as long as they remain inwardly, you don't act on it. They still.
Yeah, so vices. Yeah, some of these things that we mentioned are inward themselves. Some of them are outward. Okay, so for example, when we said kibr is the feeling of being greater. That's a vice. It's a big problem, and it's inward. If you act on it, that's when it may be called fakhr. Okay, showing off. Okay, I am this and that. Or so al-ujb is inner. Okay, ujb is in the heart. It's a feeling. Okay, acting on it could be fakhr, but in itself, it's so some of them are vices regardless. Hasad is a vice regardless. In terms of jurisprudential sins, now we're speaking akhlaq, not ahkam, not fiqh. In fiqh, yes, our scholars, they say if you don't act on your jealousy, you have not committed a sin, so to speak. But is it a vice? Of course it is. And if we don't purify, it will lead to sins. Eventually one will fall prey to their jealousy and their grudges and so on, and would commit sins, verbal or physical. So they are vices in themselves, and some of them, in order to be vices, they to fall in the definition, they're actions. Okay, so we mentioned, for example, the ihana, okay, belittling or ihtiqar of others. That requires some sort of action, okay, some sort of a speech. Okay, it's a result of that kibr that's within. Now you act on it, you say something, okay, you do something. So that is, so some of those vices, yes, they are based on actions, but some of them are also the actual feeling, they're inward, and in themselves they are also vices, and we need to purify from. Ahsant. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد. So you want